Okay, again, my wonderful student, my homeschooler, but right now he's a ninth grader in one of the primary private school in Houston. He's using this wonderful book from Harvard and Yale World History because his high school is studying Western heritage, especially about Rome and Greek. That's called classical period. It's also the root of the Western civilization. Basically, that's where their cultural root came from, where the democracy and the scientific spirit came from. We need to learn these materials. They are wonderful school, study these materials, but that's not enough. So we are going to use this textbook combined with his schoolwork, and my wonderful students are using the Harvard textbook. He combined his schoolwork and make a wonderful presentation on the history and the crisis of the politics. Basically, philosophy is used to solve the crisis of the political identity. That's why we need philosophy. And not many schools study these wonderful materials, but James can conquer it, and he would like to share with us. Now, James, it's your turn. We practice academic freedom. Say whatever you want to say. Go ahead. It's all yours.
Oh, the philosophy and the crisis
Loud and
of
clear.
the polis. This was the rise and decline of the Greek polis or city-state, which had an important role in shaping ancient Greek philosophy. This polis was during the 5th and 4th centuries BCE, and it was like it was more than just a political structure. It was like the heart, the main thing that drives Greek culture. But the polis faced political and social turmoil. Ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle began to grapple with the crisis. It represented these thinkers sought to address the instability in the polis, which led to the birth of profound philosophical ideas about politics, ethics, and the nature of human society. The polis was defining feature of Greek life. It was not just a city or a geographical location, but a political community where citizens took part in public life, engaged in decision making, and shaped their collective future. Athens. One of the most notable polises epitomized the ideals of democratic governance, intellectual discourse, and civic responsibility. For centuries, the polis provided structure and identity to the Greeks, fostering a sense of belonging and civic duty. However, as Greek history unfolded, internal tensions began to tear at the fabric of the polis. Wars like Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta strained resources and fractured political unity. Moreover, class conflicts, factionalism, and the eventual rise of Macedon under Philip II and Alexander the Great led to a significant political decline. This period of political upheaval exposed the weakness in the traditional structures of the polis, resulting in what many scholars refer to as a crisis. The democratic institutions that once symbolized the strength of Athens began to falter. Citizens questioned the justice of their laws and the legitimacy of their leaders. The political and social order, once stable and secure, seemed to be unraveling. This crisis called into question not only the governance of the polis, but the ethical foundations upon which it resetted. Philosophers sought to provide answers to the moral and political challenges possessed by this disintegration. One of the most influential figures in this philosophical response was Socrates, living during the height of Athenian democracy, and it was subsequent that decline. Socrates focused on questioning the nature of justice, virtue, and the moral responsibilities of individuals within society. His Socratic method, a form of dialectical questioning, sought to reveal the ignorance of his fellow citizens and challenge the moral assumptions underpinning their lives. To Socrates, the crisis of the polis was at its core a crisis of moral understanding. He believed that Athens' political instability stemmed from a lack of true knowledge among its leaders and citizens about what was good, or just his relentless questioning that ultimately led to his trial and execution, as his ideas were perceived as a threat to the traditional values of the polis. Plato, Socrates' most famous student, further developed his teacher's ideas in response to the crisis of the polis. In his dialogues, particularly the Republic, Plato explored the questions of what constitutes a just society. He critiqued the democratic system of Athens, arguing that it allowed the ignorant masses to rule rather than those with true knowledge. Plato proposed an alternative vision of society governed by philosopher kings, individuals who possess both the wisdom and moral integrity necessary to lead. To Plato, the decline of the polis was a reflection of its flawed government's structure, where decisions were made based on popular opinion rather than rational thought. Aristotle, Plato's student, took a more practical approach to the crisis. In his work, Politics, Aristotle analyzed various forms of government and the strengths and weaknesses of each. Unlike Plato, who proposed an idealized vision of society, Aristotle was more concerned with the realistic functioning of the polis. He believed that the polis was a natural entity essential to human flourishing, but acknowledged its imperfections. Aristotle sought to find a balance between the competing interests within the polis, advocating for a mixed constitution that incorporated elements of democracy and oligarchy. For Aristotle, the crisis of the polis could be addressed through the proper structuring of political institutions and a focus on the virtue of the citizens. In conclusion, this crisis of the polis in ancient Greece prompted a profound philosophical response. The decline of the traditional political and social structure of the city-state led to a rethink of what constitutes justice, virtue, and a good governance. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle each addressed these issues in their own way. The philosophical inquiry that arose from this period not only sought to solve immediate crisis of the polis, but also to ask fundamental questions about the nature of human society and the role of the individual within it. Their works continue to resonate as the questions they raised about justice, morality, and political structure remain relevant in modern discussion of governance and ethics. Thank you. Thank you for listening.